Hello everyone, welcome back. Sorry it's taken so long to make another lesson, but I've been sick for the past 2 weeks, and every time I've tried to film, it's either been too windy or too cold out, so there's a little bit break in the weather today, so I'm going to try and do some more videos today. In this lesson, I wanted to kind of carry on with the hand roll section of this series. Last time I talked about the vertical hand rolls, which were the figure 8 hand rolls, those things there. This time I want to cover the horizontal hand roll, which is across the hip. And it's going to be a little bit more awkward because you're going to have gravity wanting to pull the chucks down away from your hand. So you may need a little bit more momentum to get these, but they're not too much different than the vertical hand rolls. It's just you're having to fight gravity that wants to pull the chuck out of your hands. That's the only difference here. And really, the way you start these is when you go across that hip, like that pass that I showed you in the passing video, as if you're going to pass the chucks into the other hand. Okay. You're doing the same thing here, except that when you go across to that hip, you're going to be bringing it across to the other side. Okay. As you're doing that, you're going to be throwing in a hand roll in front of you. Now there are two versions of this. One where you just do the hand roll back and forth, like that. There's another version where you kind of pause in the middle and do another rotation before touching the other hip, before coming back, which looks like that. It gives you a little bit extra time to get momentum. Messed that one up. So it's giving you a little bit added momentum when you're coming to this side, as opposed to just going immediately into that, if that makes sense. So this would be like the standard version, and that would be kind of the advanced version, I guess. Okay, so that's the two versions of that. Again, as you're going into that hand roll, gravity is wanting to pull the chucks down out of your hand, so this does work better with a little bit more momentum. Okay, as opposed to the vertical where you could really take it as slow as you wanted, because the chuck is it's really not falling out of your hand, it's just rolling over your hand, if that makes any sense. Okay, so the verticals I could do pretty much at this speed, whereas in the horizontal, if I tried that, it makes it, see, it just falls right out of your hand. So that's the main thing to keep in mind with these, is you want a little bit more momentum than you did with the verticals. But it's really just the same concept. As you're coming across, you're just letting, I can do this from an angle here, you're just letting the chucks roll over your hand, basically into that position. Then you're letting go of one handle and catching the other. So it's the exact same concept as the verticals, just in a horizontal fashion. I'm trying to do this slow here so you can see it. Okay, now that's the advanced version I'm doing here. As you go into that first wrist roll, as that comes into this hand, you're basically letting this other hand come all the way around, doing a full rotation before bringing it to this hip. Okay, so slowly you'd be bringing it to this hip, out, hand roll, and catch. And this is going to do a full rotation and then come to this hip. And from there, you're just doing the opposite. You're just doing one hand roll, and then this is immediately coming to this hip. Okay, so that's the advanced version of that, to give you a little bit extra momentum. Sloppy. Okay, now the standard version is once that hand roll is complete, this immediately comes to this hip. There's no rotation in there. Okay, that's the only difference there. Now, it's very hard to do the basic after you've done the advanced, but that's what the basic would look like. So that's two versions of that. Again, just practice getting each piece of those hand rolls. So just spend some time getting the first part of that hand roll, just like that. Let me back up to it. Okay. So just start like this, going into that first hand roll. And again, like I've said, these are easier when you're holding more towards the top of the chuck. If you're holding down here, it's really not going to work out for you. You're just going to be flinging it. So hold up towards the connector, whether it be chain or rope. Bring it to this side, and then just bring it out and let it roll around your wrist and catch. Just practice that over and over until you can get that fluidly. Now when you do that, you're going to notice that the other handle wants to spin by itself. So you really don't have to control that to do the advanced. It's going to want to do that naturally. The only thing you have to do is kind of pull this other handle up to give that room to rotate around. Because if you keep it there, it's just going to clack together. Okay, or it's going to wrap around your wrist the other way like that. So as you bring your hand into that first wrist roll, what I'm doing is, once I catch that other handle, I'm basically pulling that other handle up to give this room to rotate. Okay? And as you can see there, it just wants to do that naturally. Okay? Now if you can get to this point, you've pretty much well gotten into the move. And once you see that other handle coming around, just go ahead and bring it to this hip. Okay, once you got it to this hip, now you're in reverse grip on the other handle. Then you're just bringing it to the front again, going in the opposite wrist roll. And then immediately to this hip. So once you get the first part of that, then just practice getting the second part by itself. So wrist roll over. Okay. So you're building the move incrementally is what you're doing here. You're not trying to do it all at once, because if you do try to do it all at once, it's not going to work and you're just going to frustrate yourself. So by building each piece of the move, you're also building your confidence in the move. Okay, so once you can get each of these pieces fluidly together, or by themselves rather, then you want to put them together into the full move. Okay. Again, that's the advanced version. The basic version, it's not too much difficult. It's not too much different. You're just going one and to the other, one and to the other. I tend to prefer the advanced because it gives you that little pause to get momentum. I think it's a little bit easier because there's less of a chance that you'll actually drop the chucks. Okay, so that's the horizontal wrist roll again. you have the vertical, and now you have the horizontal. I will say with the horizontal, you kind of have to come out away from your body more to give that rotation room, otherwise you're just going to be hitting yourself. So you want to come out here, you can actually give yourself room for that rotation. Okay, so that's the horizontal wrist roll, or the hip wrist roll, whichever you want to call it. It's not too much more difficult than the vertical. You're just having to fight that gravity, like I said. So you need a little bit added momentum to be able to get it. With enough practice, you can do it fairly slowly. Okay, the main thing is just getting that wrist roll in there. Okay, so that's that. The next lesson I'll be covering the finger roll, which will probably be the most advanced lesson in this series. So I'll get into that in the next one. And for now, thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.